Alrighty, we're had to put a little bit more water on the sling and put my slot hole in the bottom here for the actual sling to go through. I don't want to get it too close to the border. I want to leave it enough room for it to have enough leather there to grab onto. We're talking about firearms. I sure wouldn't want to mess somebody's gun up just because I put it too close to the end and it failed. All right. One of the other things I did was take the back of it and put blue painter's tape, masking tape on the back of it. Because when I start hammering on it here in a minute, it has a tendency to kind of flatten and spread, and that helps it to keep from spreading. There's a couple of tools we use in leathercraft. Most of them look like that for doing artwork and bringing your work to life. And what this is a beveler, and you can see it's got kind of a slope to it, and that high point right there, turned upside down being the low point, it rides in that. Make sure I can get it where you can see it. It rides in that groove right there. And as it rides in that groove, I just smack it with the hammer. And I'm gonna have to have that mallet right there. I need to put something else in here I don't have a tripod here in the house, and hopefully I'm hoping my camera's not gonna fall, so I've got it kind of wedged in here. I start beating on this leather here, and get it to where you can see it. Now I want to stay on this inside line because this outside line is what we cut, and cut the rest of the sling out, cut the whole thing out of it. But this inside, that makes the border. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to depress or bevel that line toward the middle. It's still a little bit wet. Still just a little bit wet. You can see how it's it kind of shades it a little bit. I've got to wait on it to hold it while I move. But you can see how it shades it and moves that leather around. And it's just, I've never molded clay before, but they say it's a whole lot like that. And it puts a separation between, or more of a delineated separation between the border and the artwork. Like I said, that low point of that head of that tool, it just rides in that groove, and you just move it ever so slightly between each strike of the mallet. And I'm not hitting it very hard. You can tell I'm not hitting it very hard. I'm not hitting it like I'd be hitting a hammer. I'm building a house, but just enough to move the leather is all I'm trying to do. Especially it's kind of wet, so I don't want it to look uneven either. it's a little bit wetter than I like. I just sprayed it, but I actually sprayed too. It should have sat a little bit longer. And they make other tools. They make what they call a push beveler. That's it's got a handle on it. Not entirely too much different than this, but it's got a handle that, and you just push it, and it rides in that groove, and it pushes that leather down. And this is everybody. You get a little 5 or 6 piece tool starter kit. You'll get one of these bevelers in it. Everybody gets one. You see it's starting to take a little bit of effect there. You can tell some of these places are a little bit higher than others. Of course, being wet like that, it does that. But you can tell where I've even just ever so slightly, where it's so wet that ever so slightly I've hit it different. And it kind of, some of it's a little bit lighter than others. It's a little bit more raised up in those places. And you can tell this is time consuming. Everybody's like, do you have time to get to such and such program or such and such project? And if every project that I worked on took this long, these are my tooling projects take absolutely the longest, just because of, you can tell how much work goes into them. I mean, every little mark ends up being a mallet strike. I love this. This is therapeutic for me. I tell my wife I'm not an artist, but I'm starting to believe I'm catching on a little bit anyway. All right. There. And now you can see how that kind of delineates, and it leaves that border real nice. Now, when we get finished with all the tool and stuff, this will all get sliced off, this on the outside out here, and this over here will too. And it'll leave that 1/4 inch border right here around, and then that's where the stitch line will go, is right in that. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn the video off, and then I'm going to go ahead and bevel this all the way around, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to bevel this all the way back around the bow's name and the artwork in the center, and that leaves us with the panel in the middle that'll be finished. I mean, there's nothing else goes in this centerpiece where his name's at. And then I'll bevel that, and it separates it from the rest of this panel. And what I'll do is I'll come back in a little while, and we'll do the basket weave on there. All righty, so we'll talk to you guys here in just a little bit.